playing very well. And last night, Oklahoma City, who's the number 1 seed in the West, they hold on. They knock off Dallas. Oklahoma City actually rallies in the fourth quarter and knocks off Dallas 196. And if you like good sport, that's really something that you kind of get into right now. Chet Holmgren, who the star of that incredibly awful commercial, he's kind of interesting to watch with his size and the fact that he's not a big bruising guy like Jokic. 18 points, 9 rebounds for him. But once again, John Calipari sending a message up to Kentucky. Hey,
look at my guy.
Our guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 34 points last night, 8 rebounds, dished out 5 assists. And again, Calipari just probably sitting in a very expensive home in Fayetteville, Arkansas going, system works.
I told you.
System works.
Told you so. Look at my guys everywhere around the league. He's like, oh, don't worry, because tonight I'll be watching Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Let's see who else I'm going to turn on my guys.
Yeah, he just feels good about himself. I mean, he's got P.J. Washington, the number 12 pick in the 2019 draft out there, averaging double digits and playing very well. P.J. Washington last night for Dallas had 21 points, so 2 Kentucky guys were the leading scorers for each team. And again, Calipari just sitting in a nice house in Fayetteville going, I accomplished my job.
Tried to tell you.
Tried to warn you.
I accomplished my job, even though that wasn't my job description.
Yeah.
I accomplished the job.
That was what he had as his own job description.
Yeah.
Not what Kentucky had. But that one, Boston wins last night, 109-102 as well. NHL, Carolina Hurricanes, hang around. They hang around. They get it to a game 6. They knock off the Rangers last night 4-1. And if you like good sport, that's worth tuning into on Thursday night. It'll be back down at Carolina, 7 o'clock on TNT. Carolina will look to shove it to a game 7. Preston Thorne, did you get into a little more hockey last night?
No, I didn't. No hockey from me. It was an early night last night. You know how the house goes. If the baby goes to sleep early, that means we all go to sleep.
Mom and Dad decide.
Yes.
Like, thank you.
We appreciate your service, and we're going to sleep early. So missed a little bit of the hockey night last night. Caught up on the scores this morning. I am interested to see if sort of the intensity of that rivalry keeps going as it ratchets up. It seems like we're on a collision course towards a 7-game series.
Yeah, I hope so on that because a lot of fun things to keep up with there. Bassmaster Elite yesterday on Lake Murray. It was a beautiful day for it. We got the storms later in the evening. Somerville's on. Preston, another local Somerville legacy. Patrick Walters pulls it up. 20 fish. That's the way it works. 20 is your 4-day limit, 5 a day. 93 pounds, 15 ounces, 12 pounds above the next closest person, Cody Huff.
Oh, blew him out.
I don't know what it means.
Blew him out. What's the analytics on this? I need to know. I need to know how this actually works because now I'm listening to you say that like their strategy is based on like which fish you keep. Do you keep the first one you catch? Are you going to gamble and figure out whether or not you're going to get a bigger one later? Is there a median size? What's the analytics on the fish?
That's a great question.
There's a lot of strategy I feel like we're totally missing.
We are efforting Patrick Walters and hope to have him later in the week. I don't know if he's
because if you catch a big one, but you like,
well, I'll be honest. I don't.
Just be one of my 5.
I don't know how that works in terms of like how many like catch and releases you're allowed.
Oh, then it's like
so like you just catch your first 5 and then like okay, I'm working from here. Like you get to your limit, but then like this little fella's smaller than this guy I just brought in, so I don't release that guy. We don't know this sport, and really after about Friday we'll forget about it until hopefully next year if the Bassmaster comes back to Lake Murray. But congratulations, South Carolina's on, Somerville's on. Patrick Walters gets the job done on Lake Murray, and we've got that. So a lot to get into this morning. We will certainly talk some baseball. The D1 baseball polls popping out yesterday. South Carolina hangs in barely there, Preston Thorne. They go to 24. They drop all the way from 13th to 24. Georgia, if it matters, Georgia rose from number 15 into the top 10. 38-12 on the season. Jamie Bradford was, talking about how hot Georgia is right now. I think yesterday as we were listening to him talk, I wasn't sure I wanted to believe him, but sounds like he's probably right. Georgia might be one of the hottest teams in the country. No excuse still for what happened this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Not an excuse. But what I also wonder is, do them rising, do the voters and the folks that are making those calculations, they're taking South Carolina into account? Because if they just would have swept any old body, I wonder if they would have risen that high.
That's a good question. Clemson got swept by Wake Forest, and Wake Forest is number 8 in the country, and Clemson only dropped 2 spots. They had a 1-3 week as well.
So that makes you wonder.
Yeah, I don't. Wake.
So you're welcome, Georgia.
Wake Forest moved up 4 spots from 12 to 8 after sweeping the Tigers. Tigers dropped 3 spots after being swept, or excuse me, 2 spots. Again, I'm using D1Baseball.com's poll there. So Tennessee, by the way, for those who want to know, Tennessee remains number 1. So the Gamecocks will wrap up the regular season with a series against number 1 Tennessee. That'll mark series against number 1 Tennessee, number 2 Kentucky, number 3 Arkansas, number 4 Clemson. They've played number 5 Texas A&M. They've had a 1-game showdown with number 7 North Carolina, and they've had that 3-game sweep loss to Georgia, who's now number 9. I don't know if that – we'll talk about it. I don't know if that makes people better when I tell you that South Carolina has played 7 of the top 10 teams in the country. They've been swept by Clemson. They've been swept by Georgia. They won the Kentucky series, lost A&M, and lost Arkansas, and have a 1-game win over North Carolina.
Sounds like a very average team. I mean,
I feel like what everybody will say is it's irrelevant. They are who they are.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like an average team, and it sounds as if what I always wonder when you have these types of conversations about schedules, which maybe we will, a lot of schedule talk, I guess, today, but who is counting us on their schedule? And I wonder if other teams like, oh, yeah, we had to play that South Carolina team, and as it stands right now, I don't think so.
I think normally you would say, well, we played a top 25 team, but the SEC is almost so top-heavy. They're just like, yeah, the teams after about 15, we're being in the top 25 is good. It's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. But it feels like in the SEC, if you're not in the top 15 nationally, you're kind of second tier. So we'll get to that. We'll talk a lot of baseball this morning. Talk a little NFL as well. The NFL king of scheduling. They know how to stay in the running there to keep us entertained.
Tomorrow's the schedule release. But yesterday they had a pre-release.
Yeah, they're so good at this.
They're great. How do they do this?
I mean,
and they got you locked in. You're like, oh.
Yeah, because we already know who's playing each other. You already know the opponents. It's not a matter of, I wonder if the Packers are going to play like the Texans and we're going to see Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud, or I wonder if we're going to get like a Carolina Panthers, Miami Dolphins, Bryce Young, Tua matchup. No. We know who the opponents are. We just don't know the days, and yet here we are like, I can't wait. I got to see what's going on. I don't know. Yesterday they announced that the season opener will be the Chiefs and the Ravens for on the Thursday night game in Kansas City. Kansas City, third time they will have hosted the season opener there at Arrowhead to kick everything off. So there was your pre-schedule release.
The pre-schedule release for the schedule release. Yeah, maybe that's a countdown in itself.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So we'll get into that. Also, and we will talk about that this hour, South Carolina yesterday finding out the home and away games for men's basketball. And I have to admit, I was a little intrigued. I just wanted to see. Texas is coming. I kind of am excited to see that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Texas is coming. Cam Scott will get Texas here in the building coming up next year. We don't know the dates. We just, again, much like the NFL, very wise. We're sending you out your opponents, who you get, where you get them. We'll tell you the dates and times later on. But we'll talk about that this hour as well. 803-404-6100. Jonathan weighs in on our text line. Only 32 Mondays until Christmas.
Oh, okay. Okay. I like it. You get the show, sir. I appreciate you. We will write that down. 32 Mondays.
There you go. 803-404-6100. We'll get into some actual baseball talk when we come back. Discuss South Carolina struggling. And what does that mean? We'll talk about it. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It is a Tuesday morning edition of the early game.
All right, guys, we've been counting down 9 days until 100 days, 100 days until the football season starts, 32 Mondays until Christmas. You get the point. There is time, but time is running out. So it's time to get yourself started with integrated media. Get your outdoors ready. The summer is here. Spring is gone. Football season is coming. You can get Samsung Terrace TVs, waterproof outdoor speakers for TV and music, Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors. Or my personal favorite, you can control all your devices from just one remote. So from home theater setup to adjusting your thermostat or monitoring your security systems from your cell phone, Integrated Media is the company that you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or check them out online at integratedmediainc.com. That's online at integratedmediainc.com.
Well, we do already have a big slowdown there at I-26 eastbound. It's backed up to at least St. Andrews Road right now, but that's at I-26 eastbound there at I-126. The two left lanes are blocked. And also a little farther up on 26 eastbound at exit 91, the right lane is currently blocked. So things moving slowly this morning if you are headed eastbound on I-26. And we're going to see that rain off and on today and maybe a thunderstorm or two. Actually, saw a little pop of lightning a little bit ago. That was kind of odd to see in the morning. But a high of 78 today, overnight low of 65. Then we get into the 80s, maybe a couple showers tomorrow, and a high of 84. Again, a little bit cloudy out there right now, 65 on the early game.
Well, you have no choice. You flush it. You understand the big picture. We've had some great weekends, and obviously this was our low point of the year. And so you've got to handle it properly. You've got to move on, and you've got to focus on Tennessee. You don't belabor the point that we didn't play as well as we wanted. You learn the things that you need to learn. You make the adjustments you need to make, and you focus on Tennessee and keep the train moving. That's all you can do.
That was Mark Kingston yesterday on the postgame show with Jay Phillips. It doesn't make it better, but he's right. We can just continue to discuss it, but that team, those guys in that locker room, Preston, I don't know if you ever had a loss like obviously different, the fact that it's 3 games and not 1 on a weekend, but how you try to flush it when something important is going on and move on. I can't speak. I'll get your expertise for a second. Those years where you guys were 5-2 and things started to kind of spiral out of control. I don't know if there was a loss somewhere there. Maybe it was Tennessee in those years or something where it just seemed to be kind of the nail in the coffin, because there is a part of me that South Carolina seems to be becoming unraveled, and we'll talk about that specifically to pitching in a second.
Yeah, I think what Coach Kingston was saying then is absolutely true for the point in the season that it is.
Yeah.
If this series happens earlier in the year and you get your doors blown off by a good team, you may belabor the point. Maybe you do tell them, like, you go in there and you chew them out, you call them every name in the book, you run them, whatever the case is. But that's not going to help at this point in the season. No, there's not going to be any words. As you said, we have what we have. That's not going to be the coaching strategy. So while that may not be satisfactory to hear him say that, that's really all you have left on the table as a coach at this point in the season, because there's only really maybe only one series left as far as the season is concerned. So it's not satisfactory. It's probably not what you want to hear as a fan, but that's really the only option they have.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, South Carolina has to move forward. Now, the question will be, can you get – I don't know if it's a question. I pose it as a question, but can you duct tape the pitching staff together for this weekend to try and somehow, some way give yourself a fighting chance to win the series, to get one? Yesterday, Preston, you had Coach Kingston again. He was on with Jay Phillips and the postgame show. This is Mark Kingston talking about evaluating his pitching staff going into this coming weekend.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to find predictability within our pitching staff, and we've got a lot of guys that are very capable and have had great moments. We're just looking for the guys that will be the most predictable, where we know generally what we're going to get when they go out there. We've been a little inconsistent, and because of that, we've had to change roles of guys. We're trying to find who fits best where, and we're just continuing to look for the guys to really take hold of a role when they get the opportunity. And as I said, I think many of them have the ability to do it. We just need to continue to work to get there. But yeah, that was the best offense we've seen all year, from top to bottom, power wise. They didn't run, they don't bunt, they just get in there and they bang. And they did it all weekend, and I didn't expect us to give up that many runs. I expected us to give up some runs because they score on everybody, and they've done that to most teams. But I just didn't expect it to get to that point. And then especially in Game 3, when we're up by 2 going to the 8th inning, I felt really good that game was going to be won by us. And, it's just we didn't pitch well in the last couple innings, and they finished strong. So their RPI is number 2 in the country right now. It's one of the best teams in the country, but I still hold out hope that we are as well. And we just got to keep looking for that winning form.
And that's where the concern lies. You've played 51 games. Roles should be pretty much defined by now, especially on your pitching staff. You can't be moving guys around. He talks about the inconsistencies. That's going to be the issue with this season.
There's an old song, Bill. It goes, if you don't know me by now.
Wow. Very smooth this morning.
You will. If you know the rest of the song, you'll never know me. At 51 points in 51 games, if you don't know who I am, man, I just don't know. But it becomes like a chicken or the egg scenario, because are they inconsistent because they haven't found their role, or have they not found their role because they're inconsistent? And I wonder if not cementing people into roles would give them more of an opportunity to be consistent. I don't make enough money to make that call, but I am curious about that.
I think the comment there, and I get what he's going with. I don't know. This is more a Kip Balknight type question of
Yes.
when in the season do you have to just kind of almost lay down the law and say, hey, you're the Friday night guy, you're the Saturday guy. I don't know if they've tried that. It feels like at times they have. They're really trying with Roman Kimbrell to get him out there to be the Friday night starter, but it's not worked the last 2 weeks. Can't get out of the first inning against Missouri and only got one out against Georgia. You moved Eli Jones back to your Saturday guy, and Eli Jones has struggled and hadn't seemed to really adapt well to that. You tried Garrett Gainey now as a starter on Sunday, and you got 7 1/3 out of him and looked like you were rolling along, and then the bullpen completely became unglued in that Saturday game, and as you heard him talk about, they give up 10 runs in the final 5 outs, essentially, to lose that ball game kind of handily. There ain't a whole lot of teams in the top 25 that went 1-3 this week. Mississippi State went 1-2.
Okay.
East Carolina went 0-4. Clemson went 1-3. Those are your teams with losing records in the top 25 this week.
Yeah, and the point, inconsistent actually means not good, right? The same kind of sort of conversation I always bring stuff back to football. We were having a lot of this conversation last year with the football team. We're just a little inconsistent. We're not making a play here or play there. No, that means you're actually not good, because good teams make those plays or those pitches or to get those hits pretty consistently. So inconsistency is just code word for we're not very good, and that's fine, but that's more so what it is than inconsistency.
I'm careful. I'm careful to say not good. I think they are a good team. The problem is you play in the best conference in the country.
Fair.
And you're not on the level of the elite, which is what we talked about yesterday. That's the expectation. They're a good baseball team. They're fine. They're good. Nobody wants good around here. Nobody wants back half of the top 25. I know Mark Kingston doesn't either. His staff doesn't. His team doesn't.
Nobody does, and that's very clear. Let's make that clear.
Yeah, but the truth is they're a good baseball team. They aren't a great baseball team. They aren't a national championship baseball team. And at least as it stands today, they better do something spectacular right now this weekend to maybe even make sure that going to Hoover, they're in the SEC tournament. Let's get out to the Love Chevy phone lines. Gamecock Larry wants to weigh in real quick. Gamecock Larry, what's on your mind this morning?
Okay, Bill, I wasn't going to call in until I heard you say we played 8 or 9 of the top 10 teams.
7 of the top 10.
We should have been, should be a top 10 team. So we should be able to play the top 10 teams and win some of those top games. Now, number 2, I heard Kingston, looking for this, looking for that. 10th weekend of the series. No set lineup. No starting rotation on the weekend. Still looking, we done this. We knew they were going to score some runs. But 26 walks, 8 hit by pitchers, 39 runs in 3 games. There's no excuse. We are better. We should be. We should be a better team than what he has got us in what we in now. And I'll say it is the head coach's fault. The pitching coach, where have our pitching gone? Man, Matt Williams come out there and pull a guy out when he just struck out a guy, he's going to come out and pull him out. Just walk 2 or 3, he going to let him stay in. I do not know. I will not agree with top 10. Yeah, we should be a top 10 team. We should play the top 10 teams. We should win some of these top 10 games. That's all I got to say. Go Gamecocks. Love all y'all.
5-10 against the top 5. I real quick went back and double checked myself. 5-10 against the top 10. 803-404-6100. I tell you what, we'll hit a break. We'll come back. We'll get to David. We'll let Preston weigh in on Gamecock Larry's comments. We'll roll along. It is a Tuesday morning here. It is the early game. Bill Gunner for Corley Pool Solutions. Getting a little rain right now. That can have an impact on your pool. And you know what? With summer just around the corner, you don't want anything impacting that pool. You want it to look gorgeous. You want it to look great. Whether you're jumping in it after a hard day of work or whether you're hosting people over for a cookout on a Saturday night, you want that pool to be sparkling. And with Corley Pool Solutions, that's exactly what you are going to get. Line up your maintenance today. Don't wait a day longer. They're getting booked up. Line up your maintenance today. 803-445-8109. Again, that's 803-445-8109. That's how you can reach Corley Pool Solutions. And the pool guru, Tracy Corley, who's done this for over 20 years, offers you flat rate pricing, including all of the chemicals. It's more affordable for you to contact Corley Pool Solutions than for you to try and maintain it yourself. So call and line up your maintenance today. 803-445-8109. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
I-26 eastbound, pretty much a mess in a couple areas up at exit 91. The right lane is blocked. Also, I-26 eastbound there at I-126. Things are snarled up there as well, backed up at least to St. Andrews Road, if not a little bit further at this point. So it makes it a mess when you're coming on from I-20. And just allow extra time for those slowdowns today. And we're going to have sloppy conditions really throughout the day, expecting rain off and on. High of 78, maybe a couple showers tomorrow not quite as many rain chances or quite as much of a rain chance. 84 for the high, sunny, and 86 come Thursday before we maybe see some evening showers again on Friday. But right now, it's cloudy and 65 on the early game.
.34 as we get you going on your Tuesday morning. It's wet out there. Again, if you didn't hear Jen's traffic report, big tie-up still. I-26 eastbound right there at 126.
It's Bill's fault.
Almost.
Threw a banana peel out on the road, and all kind of heck broke loose.
I almost became entangled in that web with everybody as I came off of I-20. And this is kind of where it's a little dangerous as you come off of I-20 to go either eastbound or get on 126 as I do every morning. Excuse me, pay attention as you merge into, what is it at that point, 26, because if you aren't paying attention, you're going to be visiting the people in front of you in a poor manner. So just be careful this morning as you do that. Wet out there, but at least the sky is starting to lighten up because, reminder, I believe it was David yesterday who reminded us, it's always darkest before it's completely dark.
Yeah,
he's a wise man, and he's on the phone probably with more wisdom.
I was going to say.
I thought about that one. That one stuck with me.
I was going to say, let's get out to the Love Chevy phone lines. David wants to wait on South Carolina pitch, and the wise man himself. How are you this morning, young man?
I'm doing fine. Hope y'all are, and y'all be safe on y'all's travels today. Real quick, bottom line, with a series that you have to have, if you don't know your three best pitchers by now, that pretty much states where the program is. And I believe the Landon Powell movement, we're already hearing people talk about it now. I think it's only going to grow louder. Hope y'all have a great day, and I appreciate what y'all do. Thank you.
Appreciate the phone call. Yeah, I mean, you got this week. I know a lot of people are just going to go ahead and say, well, you saw what happened last weekend. Now you get the number one team in the country at their place. Like we said, we'll let it play out. You know you've got 4 games left. We know that. I believe South Carolina is locked into the SEC tournament with no problems. I believe Auburn and Missouri are, I don't know if they're officially mathematically eliminated, but South Carolina should get 1 game in the SEC tournament. They will not get themselves into the double bye to the double elimination portion. They will play in the single elimination. So 3 games this weekend, 1 game at least in Hoover. And then you've just got to see where you go with this pitching. And you heard Gamecock Larry kind of talking about that there, and David weighing in on it too, about you've played 51 games, and now you're trying to decipher what exactly your pitching staff is and who should be in the proper roles.
Yeah, you would ideally like to know what you have at this point in the season, because this is when you've fallen on your tried and true fundamentals of who you are in the season, not just for your team, but the other team. I always think about football and this idea of, like, by this point in the season, I don't really need to see a scouting report. I know what you do, you know what I do, and then we come out there and we try and figure out who does their thing better.
The only thing I'll say, now it's rare and it's not natural, but we did see 2 years ago South Carolina football pretty much show us who they were in a loss to Florida, only to somehow become entirely different in 2 games. So it's not unheard of. That's all. That's the reason I say it's like, all right. Now, was that a shooting star, once in a lifetime type thing where you're like, okay, we know who that team is? Oh no, we don't. We don't know who that team is. They remember Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells, and everybody gets blazing hot, and Tennessee's got no clue what's happening, and Clemson's running trick plays, the muddle huddle to try and confuse South Carolina, and they're losing.
Is that Marcus Satterfield on the phone? Did he just call in?
Yeah. But that is the extremely rare occasion where
Yes.
all of a sudden it clicks.
Well, here's what we don't know, and this is why this job, your job as fans, our job as commentators, gas bags, whatever you want to call us, we don't know what's happening inside the locker room. There's a scenario where this season is absolutely over. Regardless of how many games they play, there's a scenario where that locker room is done. They've essentially thrown in the towel. The season's not going to happen. There's also a scenario where those dudes are looking at each other in the eye. Yes, they struggled last weekend, but they still have some sort of faith in each other, and they can come out on the other side. Both of those scenarios are possible. The issue is, I don't know, we don't know, nobody knows, and that's why I guess we keep leaning on the idea of saying we'll just let it play out and see where it is.
No, that's all you can do at this point. That's really all you can do. And then, whatever decisions have to be made, it doesn't matter what movement has started or who screams the loudest. That'll be Ray Tanner evaluating, as he does with every program after every season, what is the best decision for he and for that program moving forward. And, again, I want to be, my personal opinion, I want to be clear. South Carolina's a good baseball team. The problem is here at this university, with the majority of this history, good is not good enough.
Well, to that point, I'm going to just name off some teams, and let me ask you if you would traditionally consider the same thing. Would you consider program? Would you consider Stanford a good program?
Yes.
Would you consider Texas Tech a good program?
Probably not, actually. I don't.
Louisville?
Not really.
Florida?
Yes.
LSU?
Yes.
Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Every single one of those teams are in danger of not making the postseason this year. The issue is those teams have had success recently. So Vanderbilt may not make the postseason this year, but obviously they've won the championship very recently in their recent years. So I don't think the question is whether or not it's the expectations of what the fan base thinks how the team is supposed to be, combined with the idea that I will remind everybody, 2012, long time ago.
Yeah.
So when you start putting those things together, I don't know whether those – this is a whole nother conversation, but what are those expectations, and are those expectations realistic? Are we going by what we are or what we were? Because what we were was a long time ago. There's another question of what we are and have been in recent history.
Yeah, over the last decade. That's a good question as to what we are versus what we were. Like I said, I think the worst place in sports, in professional college, is right in that good level. Like you're not so bad that you're like blow it up. You're not so good that you win championships. It's the absolute worst place to be, especially like if you're in a professional sport where you're basing your draft on what are we going to do? Do we blow the whole thing up and we reset, or is this group good enough to get us over that hump? South Carolina's been fine. They've been good. But South Carolina fans were accustomed to really a decade run under Ray Tanner of very, very good baseball. And it culminated with 3 straight national championship appearances. Remember, there was a lot of times during that 2000 to 2009 era where Ray Tanner wouldn't get out of a regional or got beat in a super regional. He made 3 World Series appearances and then obviously had those 3 consecutive at the very end of his tenure. I'll never forget doing a radio show, Preston. The first year South Carolina made a national championship run, the first year, they got beat in Hoover on the opening day by Auburn. And I remember taking phone calls, people going, this Ray Tanner has lost it. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore. It's time to fire him. They had lost, I think, 3-2. I think they lost 3-2 and got sent home, 2 in barbecue, or it was 1 in barbecue. I think that was the start of that. And they got sent home. And I remember taking phone calls on an afternoon show, and people were done with Ray Tanner. And then the following week, South Carolina started an incredible march through the NCAA tournament that got them into the Super Regional, that then got them to the College World Series, that then resulted in a national championship over UCLA, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And then he followed it up again. And South Carolina baseball hit a different stratosphere that, quite frankly, back-to-back, it's obtainable. It's extremely hard.
Oh, yeah, it's almost impossible.
So, but I do understand people right now saying, all right, either be really bad so we know you're bad, or be really good so we can get completely behind you. 803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in this morning as we talk about baseball. We'll talk a little basketball as well. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Sheehan Jensen. It's the early game. 6:48 as we roll along here on your Tuesday morning. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen getting you up and getting you going, talking some baseball, obviously, and something that'll carry on. I will say this, when we were talking about this off air, and this is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. It's why this job is it's
coveted.
Yeah, because we're going to talk college baseball from mid-January to the end to mid-June, hopefully. College baseball gets covered here because of this program, and it's something that there's a lot. I was telling Preston, I mean, I can probably go down this top 25 right here on D1 baseball, and Tennessee cares. I have zero clue if Kentucky is up there today on Kentucky Sports Radio talking baseball. I feel like they're more likely talking about who Mark Pope is targeting in the transfer portal, and maybe if Mark Stoops is going to be able to get his offense going this year. I feel like Kentucky baseball would be third.
Absolutely.
It's definitely second.
Well, for instance, Clemson just got swept this weekend by Wake Forest.
Right.
Now, when Eric Bakich was at Michigan and they got swept,
yeah,
nobody, it would have been like, fine, okay, cool, whatever. Even though they were very good, and obviously that's how he got here, and he's got his big payday. But in this state, baseball means a lot. And whether it's Clemson, South Carolina, Coastal, it means a lot around here. So, yeah, that's the job. That's the job we signed up for.
And when you win, you get praised. You get loved. You have a hard time going to the grocery store without people wanting to high five you and talk to you. Unfortunately, we don't win. People around here, you don't just get a pass. You don't. And it's a great job, and it can be a very difficult job depending on how you want to look at it. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. So there was some other news yesterday in terms of basketball. And Preston, South Carolina, they lost Trent Noah, but they're in on a big center, a shooting center, if you will. Jamie Vinson from Oak Hill Academy. I know he is visiting. He's taking a visit. This is a guy that was originally committed to Jerry Stackhouse in Vanderbilt. He's now visiting South Carolina, taking an official visit. He left when Jerry Stackhouse got fired. I haven't seen this much excitement. It was different back when Eddie Fogler was doing it those 2 or 3 years, because we didn't have Twitter and you didn't have the internet in the form that we have it. You didn't have these message boards where people could really go on and analyze and break down teams and players and so forth and so on. So it's different almost 30 years later. But yesterday we got to see the teams that South Carolina will play coming up next year at both at Colonial Life Arena. I say the teams, I should say the SEC teams. And I got to admit, I was kind of like, let me check this out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you put a graphic behind it, you put some cool edits with it, and you see the schedule. You're like, okay. Then it breaks down home and away. Then you start thinking about, okay, we're going to see this team coming in here. Who's the home teams? Who's the away team? I have to admit, most of the basketball teams are just nameless, faithless opponents for me at this point, because I'm not that deep into the weeds on who's playing where in basketball, and we still haven't figured out rosters. But it was interesting to see the level of interest from a select number of folks who were like, okay, let's get ready for basketball season.
You get here at Colonial Life Arena, we'll get Nate Oates in Alabama. Alabama's going to be top.
First thing I thought, wait. Arkansas?
Yeah. Well, Alabama, you get the home games are great. You're going to have probably a top 5 team in Alabama. You're going to have John Calipari coming in here with Arkansas. We're going to get to play Auburn and Bruce Pearl and boo him. Florida comes, Georgia, Mississippi, and Chris Beard. He just seems booable. Mississippi State, really nothing there that you like or dislike. As a matter of fact, I really wish they'd do away with playing Mississippi State twice. Put another team on there that we play twice instead of Mississippi State. Texas. I like this Texas game coming to Colonial Life Arena. That will be circled. Do you know the last time South Carolina and Texas even played basketball?
No clue.
1982.
Good year.
Months before I was born. January 23rd in Austin.
Pretty close.
January 23rd, 1982, Texas won 88-71. Texas did come to South Carolina the year prior, 1980 season, 80-81, and then that was in the 81-82 season. They played back-to-back years. Texas was beaten here December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, 1980, by South Carolina 74-70.
I just want to make note that you just said that time when we played Texas as if it was old-timey trivia, and that was the year that we were born. And so that's really, really shocking when you hear that. When you start to set up the premise with, do you know the last time that they played? I'm expecting 60s.
Right. No.
You didn't give 60s. You gave 80s, which was like
42 years ago.
Which is still a long time ago. But 42 years ago in my mind is 1950. Obviously, but it's not.
It's been So the Texas will be here. We don't know when. We don't know the date yet. Texas coming, and then Buzz Williams and Texas A&M also coming. South Carolina will go on the road. They'll go face new Kentucky head coach and the Wildcats, Mark Pope. They will go on the road and face Rick Barnes and Tennessee, and they will go on the road and go to Norman, Oklahoma, to take on the Sooners. It'll be the first time South Carolina, you'll feel a little bit better about this one, first time that South Carolina and Oklahoma have hooked up since December 10th, 1992. That was a trip out there to Norman.
That feels better. That feels better.
Yeah, you feel a little more comfortable with that?
That feels comfortable, yeah.
And, of course, we do know the SEC tournament will be, if you want to schedule, if you want to think ahead, the SEC tournament will be up at Bridgestone Arena, which I love. Much like basketball or football has made made Atlanta home, and that is the event. You know where it's at. Little kids know where it's at. Everybody, it's football central the first weekend in December. Nashville and Bridgestone Arena, you got to go. I'll tell you what, it's one of the best fan experiences there is. You've got to go to the SEC basketball tournament, especially in Nashville, where it's centrally located. Broadway Street, obviously, a lot of fun if you can afford it. Broadway Street's gone up exponentially when I was there last year in terms of going and just trying to have one beverage. So anyway, we'll get with J.C. Sherbert. We'll talk a little football recruiting. We'll carry on hour 2 on the way. It's the early game.
Preston here. Let me tell you about my friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. They'll come out to you and give you a free quote for any job. Yes, they will come to wherever you are, school, work, home, doesn't matter. Absolute Glass will come out to you and give you a free quote. Now, if you have a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they work directly with your insurance company to take away the headache. Now, if you're looking to increase the value of your home with new windows and mirrors, Absolute Glass will come out and take care of that for you, too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. I say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
Definitely messy out there on the highways, and probably is going to be so really throughout the day. We're looking at Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road. There is a semi that is jackknifed, so that's going to be slowing things down a smidge. Again, that's Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs. The accident, I-26 eastbound at I-126. No lanes are blocked right now, but obviously just trying to get that back to normal is going to take a little bit, so still a slowdown there. That's I-26 eastbound at Malfunction Junction. And I-26 eastbound at Exit 91. Also, that accident has been cleared. Still could be a little residual slowdown. Just be patient, and we'll get you through it. 78 for the high today. Some rain and thunderstorms throughout the day. It's 65 right now.
Seven a.m. on your Tuesday morning. Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, joined momentarily by J.C. Sherbert of thebigspur.com as we roll along this morning. Again, just keeping you updated here in the Midlands on I-26 eastbound right there at 126 where 126 merges off and I-26 turns east really. There is still a massive backup, Jen. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks as though like the accident, at least no lanes are currently blocked, so that's good. But yeah, still a big slowdown there.
Okay, just be careful going through there right after you go over I-20 if you're going eastbound on I-26. If you're heading downtown, if you're coming to 126, stay in the far left lane to kind of avoid that. But that was even at 5:40 this morning. It was a disaster already. So hopefully here about an hour and 20 minutes later, it's opened up. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in. We'll talk a little NIL this hour with J.C. Sherbert as well and get his thoughts. Some interesting comments made by Kirby Smart as it pertains to NIL and Hugh Freeze as well. Hugh Freeze saying we're not going to sustain the NIL model, asking the same people for money. So we'll get into that a little bit this hour with JC. But joining us now, as he does each and every Tuesday. Good morning. Welcome in to, you've run message boards. You see how everybody feels about baseball right now.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. Well, I mean, we had a 3-hour show yesterday on it and talked about it and hashed it up. And, you know, the bigspur.com, certainly the folks on our message board have had some comments. So, and look, there's no way to spin it. It was a terrible weekend. So that just happens sometimes. And I think it was so bad, though, it does call into question a lot of different things. And, you know, for those that were never going to be satisfied with the season, no matter what, boring of not only a trip to Omaha, but a trip to the final series, that's gonna add fuel to their fire. And then everybody's taking a wait and see approach. I think, now you kind of look and you got Tennessee coming up, and boy, there could be a complete collapse, and you didn't expect that, didn't see that coming because teams played solid baseball most of the year. So it's always difficult after a weekend like that, Bill, but man, you and I have done it so many times. It's not like it used to be where it just ruins your week. You just kind of pick it up and move on. Saturday, I went out and bought a new truck. Happy, fine, did some yard work Sunday, took a break out of, I'm happy. So I'm it's not impacting my life in a negative way other than work, but that's part of the gig, right? That's why we make the money we do and we do the job we do.
JC, you say that, but some people would call that retail therapy. So I'm not sure if you are actually okay. Were you feeling so bad that you had to go buy a truck?
No, it was one of those things. We were looking for our son. He's getting his license, so we go to the Kia dealership, right? Because Kia is a good first car, and we're sitting there talking, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be in the market for a truck soon. It had a F-150, and I had a F-150 last time, and I got in it, and, I mean, it drove beautifully. The price was sweet on it. I mean, trucks are very expensive these days, but I got a sweet price on it. So I was like, I went ahead and bought it. You know, I was like, well, if you can take this down payment and make it work, we'll make it work. And so I got a beautiful new truck. And then, of course, that leads to things because then we went and got 14 bags of 50 pounds worth of stone to put around our shed, and I had to go do that Sunday. So I'm sore. so there is a price that has to be paid when you go get the truck.
Did the son get a car, or did he get pushed to the back of the line very quickly?
We don't think we got it narrowed down to 2 for him. He's picky, you know, but there is a Kia Forte. I guess it's a Forte, Forte. He's looking at over there. So that's, you know, so I think it's down to that one other one, but we have to, you know, kind of see what he ultimately decides. That was it. But yeah, but I'm taken care of, so I'm happy.
Preston, do you, congratulations on all that. Going back to what JC said, he mentioned something that I actually think is wild. This time last week, South Carolina was ranked 13th. We were talking about potentially playing their way into a national seed if they could win, because JC said something to the effect of, you know, nobody saw this coming. It's one thing when it happens gradually over several weeks. The turn in events in 7 days is what's been kind of absurd here because I don't know if you said it on y'all's show yesterday, JC, but Jamie Bradford on our show said, hey, this team's not locked into the NCAA tournament. There are scenarios where they don't make the NCAA tournament, whereas last week I was sitting there saying, oh, Super Regional is well within grasp. Hosting a super, being a top 8 seed is well within grasp. And 3 games later, we're like, they might even be Go ahead.
No, you're right, dude. If South Carolina does the same thing to Georgia did to them, Georgia's now top 8. I mean, you know, and now, you know, with Georgia, you put the Gamecock series on top of a series against Vandy where they scored double digits against that pitching staff and swept them as well. I mean, they're red. They're white hot right now. But, I mean, Carolina sweeps that series. They're 36-15 heading Knoxville and, you know, making some noise in the standings. And, sure, a top 8 or at least a top 10 where you get kind of a more favorable super matchup is within reach. Now, hosting a regional, I mean, they're going to have to pull kind of a miracle off in Knoxville this weekend to get back in that discussion. And if they get swept and then lose in the first round at Hoover, I think it's very questionable whether or not they get into the tournament just because of who else is kind of in the mix. You know, LSU's starting to play better. They're creeping up. And, you know, Whittle did the percentages. 13 and 17 teams in the SEC get in about 38% of the time. 12-win teams in the league have gotten in 6%, but when that number jumps to 14, it goes up to 60, which is kind of weird. So that seems to be the demarcation line. If you get swept, you're 13 and 17. So I don't know. You know, I don't know what will become of it, but certainly that would be awfully disappointing with this group. You know, to kind of lose it all here at the end.
I got a couple of things, but. What is Tennessee's motivation this week? And what's their level of motivation to go for a sweep?
They're pretty much a lock for a top 8. I mean, they're ranked number 1, but they're playing for an SEC championship. So, that's their motivation. So they got. I think I haven't looked Preston at the exact scenarios, but they're up there to the point where I think if they sweep, they would win it. So that's at Lindsey Nelson Field, whatever they call it. They're gonna be loud and ready to go because, you know, they haven't had all that much success until recently up at Tennessee in baseball. So they're gonna be chomping at the bit.
They are a game behind Kentucky overall. Kentucky 20-7, Tennessee 19-18. So they may not even win the East, let alone the entire SEC. Arkansas also 19-18. 19-8 on the season. Texas A&M right there, kind of behind them, 17-10. But yeah, that's
not what I wanted to hear.
No, that's not that was not. Yeah, you looked at it.
I tried to find a little angle there.
Tried to find just a silver lining. It's not there.
Not there.
There's no. That's it. But we'll talk a lot more about that this morning, obviously. But I do want to get into some NIL, get your thoughts, some Garnet Trust things going on. But these comments by Hugh Freeze, bastion of morality, Hugh Freeze weighing in on NIL and if this is sustainable. And, JC, we'll get your talk. We'll let you listen to a little bit of what Hugh Freeze had to say as it pertains. He was on Paul Feinbaum as it pertains to the NIL model. We'll talk a little college football with you, talk some recruiting. It is almost camp season, which, boy, back in the day, Preston, now, granted, you and I were the same age, so I didn't have to cover you in recruiting. That would have been awkward. But back in the day, camp season meant J.C. Sherbert was not going to be doing yard work. He was going to be standing around evaluating a bunch of guys out in the sun all day long at somebody's practice field. We'll get into a little college football discussion with him this morning as we roll along. He's Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Sheetjen Jensen, J.C. Sherbert joining us as he does each and every Tuesday. It is the early game.
Still kind of a mess out there on I-26 eastbound due to an earlier accident just before I-126. So while the accident has been cleared, still a slowdown, and that's backing things up at least to Piney Grove Road. So just allow a little extra time to get through that section of highway. Also, there's a jackknifed vehicle, Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road. So again, Old Orangeburg at Platte Springs Road, jackknife semi, that's going to slow you down a little bit if you are trying to get through that intersection. And as far as the rain is concerned, we're going to see it off and on today. Might see a thunderstorm here or there, looking for a high of 78. Few showers tomorrow, 84 for the high. See some sunshine and 86 on Thursday. But right now, 65 with some scattered rain in the Midlands.
$7:15. We get you up and get you going here on your Tuesday morning. Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, joined as always on a Tuesday by J.C. Sherbert to break down a few different things. And one of the hot topics, as always, has been NIL. J.C., last week, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit, Brian Kelly at LSU basically saying we're not in the market of buying players. We're not in the market of buying players. Hugh Freeze yesterday, Hugh Freeze on Paul Feinbaum's show said that this NIL model is really not sustainable. Let's hear what Hugh Freeze had to say yesterday while talking to Paul Feinbaum.
Or let's just face it, NIL's not going away. Now, can it change and come in-house and where we can all take some of the TV revenue so because we're not going to sustain raising money like we are right now with the same people that are building your facilities and buying your suites, and that's going to get really old quick for 95% of us. But the young men who are being blessed should be able to sign a contract, and they have to honor that contract just like I do. If I were to leave Auburn, somebody's got to pay that buyout clause, and I think it should work the same way so that we eliminate we're not going to eliminate them sharing in the revenue, and I think we're all okay with that. Now, should it have more structure? Yes, and all of that, but we've got to eliminate this, them being able to sign a contract with someone and leave 3 months later or 4 months later, because we can't continue we don't even know how to build an 85-man roster right now.
Preston, I'll start with you. You hear him say that and I mean, there's a lot to unpack from what he just said, talking about a potential buyout clause for players, which is interesting. I think he's got a great point about when you constantly go to the well, which is the same people over and over for NIL money. What do you take away instantly from what he just said?
Okay. I have very little sympathy for any coach making as much money as he does, begging and pleading about how tough his job is. So he was good up until that point for me personally. But I will say this. This is something that's coming to an end. We've been in this transitional period in college athletics with the things that are happening with the antitrust legislation, which we've stayed away from because there's no point in covering it until it's done. There is some relief coming in the form of revenue sharing, and there will be different sources of income that programs will be able to use. So I think this model, it's not sustainable. He's correct. And there are ways that we are seeing that it will be corrected.
JC, how do you take what Hugh Freeze had to say yesterday?
Well, there's two different buckets. First of all, I agree with Preston. I mean, as far as Hugh Freeze, the 85-man roster thing, it made me kind of cringe a little bit. I'm like, well, we don't even know how to do that. Well, everybody else in the country is in the same boat you are, Hugh. So don't whine. You're making a lot of money, and that's why you get paid the big bucks, right, bro? So I'm like, I have no sympathy for that. I do have sympathy for kind of the job load, the constant recruiting that coaches have to do these days. That can't be pleasant nor fun, nor do I think that's productive as far as developing players for life and all that good stuff. When you constantly have to recruit, recruiting's a fantasy world compared to reality of football, college football. And when you're constantly having to create this fantasy, it's, the players aren't going to work that hard and all that. The part about sustainability with asking the same people over and over again, yes, the big donor model was never going to work. And if you see it around the country, some schools that started out really well with NIL, all of a sudden are not doing so well. And there's a reason why. Those funds dry up quicker than anything. I mean, he's right. Boosters want to build facilities. They'll give you a couple million to put their name on a building, right? But they're not going to write a check for $2 million every single season for the payroll, right? That's even for people that are super well off. That's a lot of money, right? And so what we've done at Carolina, and there are some very generous folks out there that have contributed mightily to the efforts at Garnet Trust, and it's above water and, doing well. There's always room for more. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's the rosiest picture in the SEC. I mean, that's the goal. But that's why collectives are important, and that's why, it's more about numbers. It's more about getting – 15,000 fans to give an average of 40 a month. Most of them would give 10 to 20 than it is about one guy writing a big check. Ideally, you need both, but you can't keep going to that well, like Hugh Freeze said. I mean, even if you're winning, that's too much money to own anybody's bottom line. And the other thing, too, is, with our model at Garnet Trust, we're looking to do other things, business partnerships. We've got a great one with Gamecock Traditions, and we've got I wish we had about 10 of those around the state where we get, you get a percentage of sales. We have business memberships where, through my media outlets and channels, I promote businesses and it's cheap advertising, but it goes back to NIL. You can set something up for players. I mean, there's you have fundraisers. There's different types of things, products, that'll be out there. There's different types of ways you can get multiple revenue streams into a collective to where you don't have to go to that well every single year. And that's the goal, at least here, is to get that thing where, there's 25 different revenue streams funneling in, and it's not just based on one, a handful of guys writing you a check every year. And then Alabama, everywhere else, the same way. Hugh Freeze is absolutely right about that. So what's going to happen with the rev share is once this comes down, I think, it's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense that the schools themselves will be able to share that revenue with the players. So their bottom line, what the players are making or whatever from collectives, is probably going to decrease. That's the hope. The problem is there's still going to be a need for NIL because the collectives are still going to be right there in the space. Name, image, likeness is not going away. It's still going to be perfectly legal. And so what you hope is everybody's not just like, the university's got it. I don't have to, I shouldn't chip in, or, I don't, my $10 doesn't matter anymore. That's totally wrong. So that's the concern, is that it makes it harder for the collectives to grow because everybody else's collective, especially around the SEC, I think they'll continue to grow and be sustainable. And then all of a sudden it's, the rev shares this at all these schools, but at South Carolina, there's all these NIL resources too. And you're never going to get a situation, Bill, where I think you're paying too much. In other words, it's going to cap. You're not going to – nobody's going to be making seven figures coming in as a freshman right away in football.
Oh, did we lose him? Yeah, he dropped. Okay, we'll get him back. That's no problem. 803-404-6100. We'll pull him back and let him talk to that. Preston, I think the other interesting part to that, though, is – and look, I don't – how do I want to word this properly? I think every coach right now has a thought, an idea. And it's not that I disagree with you, Freeze. I'm open to it. Of if you sign the contract, much like a coach, if you want to leave, I don't know what these contracts exactly are. We'll get JC back on the line and see if he can break down what these contracts exactly are. But if you leave, if you break your NIL agreement, you do have to pay back a portion of the money. I'm okay with that.
This is America, Jack. Put it in a contract.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You can do anything in a contract, but they don't want to do that because guess what? If you do that, that means another school won't do it, and I'll go to that school. So that's how employment works. If you want to do that, that's cool. Either A, you offer me more money, so I would sign that buyout clause just like the coaches do, or you don't put that clause and you take a risk just like everybody else risk does in business.
JC, I know you didn't hear all that from Preston. I think it's an interesting concept. What Hugh Freeze said, this is the next part of it, about putting almost a buyout clause. If a player is going to leave your organization, if he's going to leave and that's that might be the way to start referencing athletic departments, your organization. But if they're going to leave your athletic department in an NIL deal, should that be in how do those contracts work? What can you tell us about these NIL contracts and how they are worded, where if a player were to leave, if you were to slip that in there and say, okay, you owe 20% or 25%, whatever back, how would you see that going over?
Well, I'll say this. You have very few situations that I've heard of around the country where a player will come in, make the money, never play, and then he's gone. Like he's gone 3 months later. That if you give a player a bunch of money up front, you're dumb. because it's for name, image, and likeness, you can't tie that to them performing for your football team. You can't tie that to them being, to them not leaving after the season is complete. Most of them are one-year deals anyway. What you can do is require them to be a student athlete in good standing at a university, to where because most of these, by and large, are either monthly deals or it's small monthly payments with quarterly bonuses, things like that, to where if they leave, you just cut off a spigot or an office space, as they said. You fix the glitch and say, I'll get any more money. Like people think Juice Wells walked away and continued to get paid and all that. And he did, because if they're injured, you can't do anything about it. But, it's not as if, he sat there and stayed on the payroll and is still getting money or whatever. I think with a rev share situation, that kind of becomes also a business deal where, and then I don't know what's going to happen with non-competes in this country. There's some folks that want to do away with them. So I don't know how you could structure it, but I think with rev share, you probably could do somewhat of a buyout, depending on how you structure it. Because then you get into this. All right, so rev share is essentially name, image, and likeness because it comes from television, which I've always advocated for. Give them a piece of the TV money. That's what they're using, your name, image, likeness, performance, whatever, to create a television product that they're getting paid for. The actors in Friends got paid, right? They didn't just pay everybody else and not the actors, so I get that, totally. So then you run into this, okay, season's complete. That means your obligation to be on TV is complete. So what are you going to do to kind of get them to stay? I mean, is it going to be a multi-year scenario where, you got a 2-year deal, and if you don't honor the second one, there's financial penalty? I don't know. It seems to me like, collectives are kind of hesitant to do that because you don't want to get in a situation where, so North Carolina's collective or whatever, they're forcing you to stay or you got to pay them all this money, whereas this other collective is like, come on, stay how long ever you want. You get into a recruiting disadvantage if you do that. So it is a fascinating thing. I do think the more in-house it is, as far as where the money comes from, the more you'll be able to, control the movement a bit and put stipulations in. But and then the NIL deals will be like, toppings on a Sunday or whatever. And I think that'll probably work out much better.
803-404-6100. We'll talk a little recruiting with J.C. Sherbert. Camp season just around the corner. South Carolina actually extending an offer to a in-state 2025 defensive end yesterday. We'll let him talk a little bit about that as we roll along. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, J.C. Sherbert, Jen Jensen. It is the early game. In 3, 2, 1. This year, Roy and Dana Finley are shaking things up at AAA Heating and Air. For the next 12 months, they're telling their customers no. Get a new system purchase with no payments and no interest for a whole year. You heard that right. Purchase a brand new system in 2024 and get no payments and no interest until 2025. Do what I did. Call AAA Heating and Air today for your free estimate. 803-677-1500. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Sloppy conditions out on the highway today and still experiencing a slowdown on I-26 eastbound from an earlier slowdown. It seems to be getting a little bit better, but yet we're still Actually, it's still looking like it's pretty slowed down right there between Harbison and I-126. So, or even beyond that, there seems to be slowdowns. So basically, if you're coming in from the Chapin area, Irmo area, expect some slowdowns on I-26 eastbound because there are plenty of them this morning. And aside from that, we do have the old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road where there is a semi that is jackknifed. So have that as well. Rain off and on today with a high of 78, 65 right now in the early game.
Reminder, the craft beer card is back. Spend $30 at 12 different craft beer locations. It's a $360 value, but you can get it for only $79. Go to 1075thegame.com and click on Sweet Deals and purchase your craft beer card today. It is back. And again, right now, there's an incredible deal on it. $79 will get you a $360 value. 12 different craft beer locations, and each one you're able to spend $30 at. That is 12 times 30. You get the point. It's $360, but you can get it for just $79. Go to 1075thegame.com and click on Sweet Deals to make your purchase today. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Let me ask you this. I saw this yesterday, and I do want to talk some recruiting. Where is college football going? Because Missouri State is going to join the FBS. And it feels like with so much turmoil and the potential for breaking away to just 4 major conferences, maybe even just 3, who knows, the SEC, the Big Ten, and who knows, maybe the Big 12, maybe the ACC ceased to exist as it is with major college football. Maybe the ACC holds on. Is now the time to make the jump like Missouri State, Kennesaw, and Delaware all plan to do in the next 2 years? Would you make that jump, Preston Thorne?
That's a great question. So what I would have to try and figure out is, like everybody tries to figure out, what's the money situation going to be? Am I going to take this risk and try and jump up and spend with the big boys, assuming that I'm going to get a piece of this money? Or is this money just going to stay at the top and it's not going to trickle down to the rest of us? I don't know. There's a lot of conversations. People have incorrectly assumed that by adding football to your roster or making a jump in level that increases your enrollment in your colleges. And recent studies have found that that's not necessarily the case. So I wonder if people are banking on that assumption, that might not be the thing that they should basically bank their future program on.
JC, I mean, do you see, is this more of a way of almost securing yourself into what would end up being a second tier of college football? You'd end up with having, again, the top tier, which could be the ACC, but it'll definitely be the SEC, Big Ten, and I think Big 12 is pretty stable at this point. Then you have another tier of Mountain West, Conference USA, Sun Belt, something of that, and then you have the FCS. How do you see this shaking out here with these teams trying to move up?
Yeah, man, I think I've been a proponent of a group of 5 playoff for about 2 years now. I think it's silly. I think that you do get the disservice to your program chasing the almighty dollar. But, I mean, you can say the same thing about Stanford and California and Oregon and Washington and SC. And I mean, you know, that's the move they made was basically a naked play for money. It has nothing to do with the student athletes or having a good program or even winning. And I think that we've seen that through the years. I mean, App State, what's more fun if you're an App State fan? Winning a national championship or going to the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery in December? I mean, what's more fun if you're a Georgia Southern fan, winning a national championship or struggling to get into the Cure Bowl? I mean, it's insane. And the University of Delaware has a rich football tradition at the FCS level. Surprised that they would do it. You know, Kennesaw State, not so much because their peer schools like Georgia State and Mercer in the state of Georgia, they've all made the jump relatively quick. So I get that. I understand that. But not Delaware. And but I think you could solve this by having a group of 5 playoff, which I think TV would get behind. I mean, we're watching bowl games all December anyway, guys. You could include the minor bowls, throw them a bone. I'd much rather watch a semifinal game in a minor bowl than the 6-6 MAC team versus a 7-5 Conference USA team, wouldn't you? And I think everybody would get behind it. But there's so much clamoring for a spot at the table by some of these leagues with the hope that you could be a sacrificial lamb in the first round. That it's almost as stupefying as some of the moves the Big Ten have made. But Missouri State probably ready. I mean, that's a school. They used to be Southwest Missouri State. They've had a lot of success through the years in really football, baseball, and basketball. So I get that. But man, oh man, just making that jump right now into this mess. I don't know that I wouldn't have maybe put it off a little bit, but like you said, they're chasing dollars, and that's the name of the game these days.
Yeah, I wonder about it with App State, with Coastal Carolina. If you wouldn't rather see, if you're a Coastal Carolina, if you wouldn't rather see the higher levels, the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, maybe the ACC again split off, because then you become Coastal, App State. Some of these others become James Madison, you throw them in there, become some of the top dogs in a second-tier league where you are playing for a championship. And maybe there's more revenue dollars to be had than just being currently second fiddle. Look, we see all these going into it. Streaming networks, Amazon, Netflix is going to do something. Who knows if there's not money to be had there for, a Sun Belt, a Conference USA, to maybe get a few more dollars there for a streaming service to promote your program. I'll be interested again to kind of see that. 803-404-60.
And then
Go ahead.
You're playing for something, Bill. I mean, what are these teams really playing for? I mean, the system's screwed anyway. I mean, you're going to sit there and tell me that Liberty, who had the worst schedule in the country last year, the worst, like bottom of the rent, like worst, that they deserve to go to the Fiesta Bowl over SMU or Boise State, name your mid-major. I mean, so the system's screwing them anyway. And so I don't get it. I mean, I would probably try to, understand my value and go with my own system. I mean, one of the reasons you go to FBS is scholarships too, because there's only, I think you get 60 in FCS. You get the full allotment. That's about to change as well. So I don't know. I think that you look at high school football across this country, there's never a situation where all the schools, big and small, play in one big playoff in a state, probably even your sparsely populated state. So we do it for high schools. Why don't we do it for college as well?
803-404-6100. We'll come back, wrap it up. Again, I'll ask JC his thoughts. South Carolina putting out a 2025 offer to defensive lineman Jaquavius Dodd, 6'5", 225 pounds, out of Eastside High School. We'll talk a little bit about that, get his thoughts on some guys he might be watching or trying to keep up with. His camp season is upon us. You're listening to The Early Game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. For nearly 30 years, they've been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry, and it's that kind of history that has made them the absolute best in the business. They'll provide the proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility in a manner both safe and pleasing to your operation. And you know we're going to have some of those summer thunderstorms rolling around here coming in June and July, and with hail likely to be involved, you want to make sure that your roof is ready to handle it. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Mid-State Roofing is ready to take your phone call. Whether it's an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee, they'll help you with a maintenance contract. So make that phone call today. 803-356-1919. You can visit them online, midstateroofing.com, or again, give them a phone call and work on that maintenance contract. 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. Are tax troubles weighing you down? Has this been something that's been bothering you? Don't let the stress of taxes, levies, or liens hold you back any longer. The Ecton Law Firm is ready to give you a free consultation today and make sure they relieve that stress that you've been dealing with. Trust me, it's no fun during the summer dealing with tax stress. Call John Ecton and his team today, 803-771-9800. Again, that's 803-771-9800. Whether you're here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, wherever you may be listening this morning, the Ecton Law Firm has a local team dedicated to resolving your income or business tax issues for good. And it all starts with a free consultation. Go ahead, make that call today to the Ecton Law Firm. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you, 803-771-9800. 7:48, get up and get going on a Tuesday morning. Final segment with J.C. Sherbert here as we roll along. And we've talked a lot here. We've talked some baseball. We've gotten into a little NIL, and in that previous segment, talking a little bit about just the future of college football. And the future, well, a lot of it sometimes starts right here in the state of South Carolina. What's been labeled D-line heaven. And Preston Thorne, you're a proud graduate of D-line heaven, as Ryan Bartow and J.C. Sherbert like to call it.
There's also could mean there's top of the class on graduates, and then there's people who've barely graduated or people who benefited from being in the class. You know, just because it's an honors class doesn't mean everybody in the class is an honors student. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in the class.
Well, sometimes you got to dig a little deeper. JC will tell you that. You got to dig a little deeper through that class, rummage through the pile a little bit. South Carolina offering 2025 prospect Jaquavius Dodd, JC, 6'5", 225 pounds, edge player Sterling Lucas, I guess speaking with him yesterday, according to Jaquavius Dodd's Twitter account. He also has an offer from Virginia Tech as well, plans to camp at Florida State and South Carolina. Your thoughts on South Carolina trying to go in-state and find maybe a kid with some good size to him?
Yeah, and I don't know this. I need to do some research. Eastside and Riverside are right beside each other up in Greenville County. Actually, our Hale McGranahan went to Eastside. Shout out to Hale. And then Kevin Dodd, who played at Clemson, was a Riverside kid. So I'm wondering if they're not somehow related, but I don't know that for sure. But similar to Kevin Dodd, here's a guy that's, you know, what we call a jumbo athlete. He's explosive enough. I'm sitting there, got his film up right now. Long arm, 6'5", 230. The type of guy out of South Carolina that sometimes slips through the cracks. I mean, you know, JT Gear, who's on the roster now, spent 2 years at Syracuse, 6'6", 262. Syracuse was only offered good enough to come back certainly and play for Carolina. They needed to get healthy, but these are the type of guys you don't want to, you know, let them get out of the state. And it hasn't been the best run in the state lately for edge, and so the fact he's an edge is huge as well. he has a 4-star rating for 24/7 Sports Composite. On3 has him ranked pretty high. Charles Power does the evaluations for On3 within the state, and I trust him probably more than anybody else as far as in-state evaluations go. And Sterling Lucas did go evaluate him and offered him a scholarship. So, Virginia Tech's been kind of the team to beat because they've been the biggest offer. I know he's going to probably visit Connecticut, but I think the Gamecocks right now, have a pretty good shot. Obviously, anytime somebody goes down to Tallahassee and visits, that's a concern if Florida State wants them. But I think the Gamecocks are right there in the driver's seat, and certainly just going off film and production last year, I think he'd be a good one. The last scholarship player I can remember from Eastside's Andre Goodman. So that's it's been a while. It's been a minute for the Eastside Eagles since they've sent a player to Carolina.
Looking ahead, camp season is upon us, and now a brand new thing, Preston. I'll get your opinion on this. You like the idea of being able to take the official visits during the summer?
Ooh, I guess everything changes with the calendar, so I do like being able to get on campus a little bit earlier. Maybe that helps you make your decision earlier. It just changes the environment about campus because you don't get a chance to see what the campus offers. But if that's what it is, that's where we are.
JC, Go ahead.
Well, no. Compared to like when Preston was there and the facilities weren't that good, I mean, Columbia, this would have been a disaster for South Carolina to have summer official visits back then, because that's something Clemson and Chapel Hill both beat the Gamecocks up on. Because you go to Clemson, you go to Chapel Hill in the summer, it's a lot different. It's beautiful, it's quiet, it's pristine. Columbia, it's just kind of a ghost town, a lot of concrete, a lot of heat. But with the new facilities they have and kind of the way they structure them now, South Carolina's had a pretty good run with summer official visits. They get them out there, they take them to the pool, they keep them cool, that kind of thing. And then certainly if people want to know, what the ops building, how that helps. That helps with that because, you're sitting there in a first-class facility most of the time getting everything done. And, it's not like you're not out there kind of in the concrete jungle like it may have been before. But, with everybody signing in December now, I mean, you may as well. Very few official visits are taken after June these days, so it's kind of crazy.
One of the guys that we'll watch, it'd be the third straight year that South Carolina lands a 5-star out-of-state player, which speaks to what Shane Beamer's doing. Zayden Walker, the linebacker, the brother of Jalewis Solomon, who is set to enroll. And I know there's been a lot of talk right now, South Carolina, Miami, Penn State. I believe it's Georgia's the fourth school. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But your thoughts on him. And again, I don't know if South Carolina has landed three, prior to Shane Beamer, landed 3 5-star out-of-state players. Prior to that, they've got a chance to add a third one in 3 years.
And not in the composite era, and this kid's from Georgia too, so that's a big deal. When you can go over there and get it, there is the family connection there. But Zayden Walker's a stud. I mean, you start thinking about this, guys, when you look at the linebacking core moving forward, because Wendell Gregory and Fred Johnson, every piece of feedback I've gotten from both of those guys since they set foot on campus is bright future, really good. Now you gotta keep them on campus. There'll be a portal season that comes around and stuff, and they're from out of state. But you look at Wendell Gregory, you look at Freddie Johnson, and then you add this guy to the mix, and you're like, man, they hadn't had 3 linebackers like that since Kenny Harney and Body Bags and all those guys. That's no offense to Rodney Falk, Shaq Wilson, Jasper Brinkley, everybody that's played between that. But, man, those are some dudes. And so if you get him, I think linebacker all of a sudden is looking really bright for the future. And that's good. I mean, that's a good thing. I think they're going to be much improved this year because of the older guys they brought in. But you go beyond that, and if they can manage to land Walker, that could be one of the best linebacking cores in the history of the school if they reach their potential.
The number 1 overall this is according to 24/7 Sports, number 1 overall linebacker in the country, number 9 overall player in the country. JC, we always appreciate it. Look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday.
Hey, thanks, fellas. See you.
Appreciate it.
Hour 3 on the way. Oh, Bronny James and LeBron James. Oh, boy. And also, did Iowa's women's coach, Lisa Bluter, look around and be like, I'm out? We'll talk about it. Hour 3 on the way.
Chronic pain, knee pain, and joint pain? Listen carefully because there are new regenerative treatments now available here. QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, is now opening lasting relief to people with joint pain with no surgery, drugs, and no downtime. QC Kinetics has over 100 clinics nationwide and has treated thousands of patients with incredible success. Their advanced protocols are an exciting way to manage pain from arthritis and injury without surgery, steroids, or pain pills. So if you got pain in your knees, shoulder, hip, or back, you need to check out these new treatments. They can actually help your body to restore and repair itself. So call now to schedule your free consultation with the local media professionals at QC Kinetics. Call the number 803-281-6860. That's 803-281-6860. Again, 803-281-6860.
Still big traffic snarl on I-26 eastbound, really between about exit 101 and 104. It appears that that's the biggest slowdown that you're going to encounter. Just kind of a mess from an earlier accident. So expect slowdowns again, 101 to about 104 on I-26 eastbound. And we also have a report of an accident I-77 northbound at Shop Road. Old Barnwell at South Lake Drive. Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road, getting that cleared from an earlier jackknife semi. 277 southbound near Hardin Street extension, an accident there. Could see kind of sloppy conditions throughout the day as we are going to be experiencing rain, maybe a couple thunderstorms here and there. 78 for the high, 84 tomorrow with a couple showers then. 65 right now.
We've got you rolling along here on your Tuesday morning. Big thank you to J.C. Sherbert for joining us there in the previous hour. We hit several different topics there, a little recruiting, a recruiting keyword, phrase that caught Preston Thorne's attention. I saw him light up like a Christmas tree. The new term jumbo athlete has been brought to Preston Thorne's attention.
I didn't know this existed. I didn't know this was a thing. You can sort of hear sometimes. You can sort of hear sometimes where these new recruiting words get spoken. Edge. I don't know when this happened. Whoever invented that. And I always frown my face, so I'm like, oh, here we go, just creating another thing. But I heard JC say jumbo athlete.
That caught your attention, huh?
Because those guys used to just be like, oh, well, what position you play? Well, I was like, well, I'm an athlete. I play whatever position. But can you be a jumbo athlete?
That's right.
What qualifies you for a jumbo athlete? Is there a weight limit? Is it a height limit? Waist circumference limit? Section of the store you shop in? How do you become a jumbo athlete?
I think, section of the store you shop in. It's Tonka Hemingway, Alex Huntley, both have both scored touchdowns.
Yes.
As running backs have both scored touchdowns. Am I right on that?
I know Tonka did.
Better question, was William the Fridge Perry the first jumbo athlete?
Maybe. There's always this clip that sort of just populates my timeline every 6 months or so of him chasing a dude down when he was at Clemson, and he's gaining like 30 yards and he had an angle on him. Way better athlete than he was given credit for at the time because, the Fridge, he was so huge at 290 pounds.
Yeah.
We've never seen anybody that big before. And we've surpassed that.
He's a mini Fridge now.
Yeah, for sure.
He's actually a mini Fridge. But good talking recruiting. We'll put that in for the month of June. Jumbo athlete. Keep you updated on
Big time list coming up.
Big time list. Yeah, the top 5 jumbo athletes of Preston Thorne's career. So good discussion with J.C. Sherbert there. Also talking a little NIL, something that Hugh Freeze said. Really interesting. Not sustainable. And I tell you what, Jen, let's play that clip again of Hugh Freeze on the NIL and how it's not sustainable. We'll kind of wrap up our thoughts on that because there are some interesting things in here from Hugh Freeze. This is him with Paul Feinbaum yesterday talking about the current model of NIL.
All right, let's just face it, NIL's not going away. Now, can it change and come in-house and where we can all take some of the TV revenue so because we're not going to sustain raising money like we are right now with the same people that are building your facilities and buying your suites, and that's going to get really old quick for 95% of us. But the young men who are being blessed should be able to sign a contract, and they have to honor that contract just like I do. And if I were to leave Auburn, somebody's got to pay that buyout clause, and I think it should work the same way so that we eliminate we're not going to eliminate them sharing in the revenue. And I think we're all okay with that. Now, should it have more structure? Yes, and all of that, but we've got to eliminate this, them being able to sign a contract with someone and leave 3 months later or 4 months later, because we can't we don't even know how to build an 85-man roster right now.
What do you take away from? I mean,
there's a lot. There's a lot that's obviously, and we haven't really talked as much about it because I wanted to get finished before we break it down. But there's currently the NCAA and the Supreme Court are going through a bill about antitrust legislation, which, when it probably will pass, will allow for revenue sharing from the athletes. There's a lot of things that are tangled up in this conversation that is hard to parse out. But this was a temporary solution for what has been a permanent problem. And I think through this temporary solution, which was NIL, donor giving, etc., we're going to get to a more permanent solution, which will be the players receiving money from TV contracts, which, as JC stated last segment, which is based on their name, image, and likeness. And so there's a multi-billion-dollar suit that the NCAA is going to gladly pass because they don't want to pay any of that money. So this is coming, and this will be figured out quicker than we thought.
You're all right about that, and hopefully it'll kind of get college football back to maybe where it was. Because I got to admit, you talk about, and I'm a recruiting geek. I really loved it. I loved seeing other teams build rosters, and then all of a sudden you go, oh man, look at what we've accumulated over the last few years through recruiting. These days, what we talked about at the very end, Zayden Walker, a top 10 player nationally according to 24/7 Sports, the top linebacker in the country. And you heard JC's talk about Wendell Gregory and Fred Johnson. Man, that could be a really good linebacker group, a really good linebacker room for Clayton White to coach. Well, there's no guarantee Wendell Gregory and Fred Johnson are here next year if Zayden Walker committed and they were to play with him. You don't know these days.
Very true.
What your roster looks like from year to year.
And so that's why with this incoming revenue sharing, there probably will be some sort of collective bargaining process with a player or a player representation, player agency or something along those lines where we can come to an agreement between both sides and we can have something set out where there's – but I will say this, Hugh. You left Liberty. Who paid that buyout clause? Was it you?
I liked how he did weasel that in there about somebody pays it. I don't.
Yeah, you don't pay it. Most likely the same people who are paying this NIL are the same people who are paying it.
Yep.
So don't bring up coaches being able to leave it like, oh, somebody got to pay the buyout. Yeah, you know who left? You know when coaches leave, those people pay it, or the other school incurs that as part of the expense. We've seen this happen over and over again. So relax on your high horse. We're all, as they've said, we're all robbing the same train here. Let's just figure out how we can get everybody more of an equal share.
So we'll obviously continue to monitor that throughout the summer, see where it goes. You got SEC meetings taking place in Destin towards the end of the month. I'm sure that'll be a point of discussion. We will officially at that point, welcome in Texas and Oklahoma. They will be allowed to be a part of the meetings. I think last year it was like they had to sit there in a room and they were allowed to zoom in every once in a while, but they had to just be on call, just sitting there waiting. Now we get to, oh, cool. But this year they'll officially be a part of it. And that's another thing that happened yesterday. The SEC, Southeastern Conference, releasing their opponents for the 2024-2025 basketball season. We learned at least where South Carolina will play teams, and I thought that was kind of cool because we learned South Carolina will go to Norman, Oklahoma for a game, and they will host Texas for a game here. And you look at the schedule, Preston, I'll say this. I would expect for Lamont Paris, with this team, I would kind of expect him to upgrade the non-conference schedule a little bit this coming season.
That's what I wanted to really ask you about. Where do you see the non-con schedule going? And have we figured out anything about Lamont's philosophy in non-con scheduling?
We haven't. I think now, if you just base it on what occurred this past year when he was able to really get in and do his own scheduling, the first year he kind of had to follow some guidelines that had been in place from the previous regime because of 2-for-1s or 3-for-2, whatever. You get the point. This year he was able to kind of do his own, and that worked out. You saw him kind of schedule very lightly there, and it worked because you gelled a team. If you like your team better, I think you're going to upgrade. They are already in, I think it's a West Palm Beach. I forget the actual name of it, but they are in a multi-team event, which is what they're called now, not tournaments, but multi-team event with Xavier, with Michigan, and with Virginia Tech. So we know that you're going to get at least 2 games against those 3 opponents. You'll get the ACC Challenge, which the ACC SEC Challenge. Last year, South Carolina got Notre Dame here. I kind of would expect South Carolina to be on the road to this year. Me personally, would love to see South Carolina and North Carolina State. Would love to see that. Send South Carolina up to Raleigh and play up there. North Carolina State, we now know, had that Final Four run. They're a pretty good team. Wouldn't mind seeing that. Obviously, there are some other teams, maybe South Carolina, Florida State. Maybe I'd love to see South Carolina and Georgia Tech, but I would expect South Carolina to go on the road. Where I'm kind of going with this, though, is that home schedule should be really good. You have Clemson coming to town, and Clemson landed a huge transfer portal prospect the other day, Christian Reeves, originally from Duke. Tigers got him in. Clemson getting P.J. Hall back. They should be a really good team. I do hope Brad Burnell and Lamont Paris sit down or the parties communicate and try to find a great date to showcase that game, like a huge date to showcase that game, because there's a possibility it could be a top 25 game.
As opposed to what do you consider a great date? You don't think like the traditional, but over that Christmas break, that's not a You don't feel like that's? Are you saying when there's students on campus? What do you mean by a great day?
You got me flipping to December. Okay, if I'm thinking correctly, I believe South Carolina and Clemson play football November 30th. December 7th would obviously be championship weekend. I wouldn't really want them to play that weekend. Just you could lose. But, and I don't know when necessarily. I don't know when the students go on break. But, whether you play it during the week.
I got you.
Or whether you play it on a Saturday like December the 14th early on to showcase that game. There's a chance that again will be here at Colonial Life Arena. And that adds to, again, the games that you're going to get. We saw South Carolina, we learned yesterday, coming to Colonial Life Arena this coming season for basketball. You're going to have, at worst, unless they fall apart, a top 10 Alabama team. You're going to have John Calipari in Arkansas, which is going to be interesting. Bruce Pearl and Auburn will make a trip. I mentioned Texas. That'll be kind of exciting. And then you also have Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, both Mississippi schools, and Buzz Williams and Texas A&M. So we know the conference games that'll be at home. Throw in Clemson with that. And to kind of wrap this discussion up, I personally would love to see Lamont, Coach Paris, get another absolutely big-time non-conference home game. That's... I go if you want to go regional and say schedule a Big Ten team, to get he's got some ties there. Maybe he's got some friendships with coaches. That's kind of how these things work.
Right. Go
up there and see if you can get a home and home scheduled where maybe you can get them here this year for a big non-conference home game. Because, again, I'm thinking it's likely they're going to not have the ACC, SEC challenge here. You'll have to go on the road for that.
That makes sense. And the CLA has proven to be an environment that when the team's winning can produce an exciting environment that plays on TV, that plays for a national audience. So that would be something that would benefit the program.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that coming up tomorrow. NFL schedule release.
Big day for a lot of people. Are you in that camp?
No. We'll get into that. NFL, they Major League Baseball has no clue how to distribute their product. The NFL is running circles around. We'll let Preston talk about that. And, oh, boy, Bronny James and LeBron James. It might be time for these two to go away. We'll get into that as well. Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Shi Jen Jensen. It is the early game. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder and First Palmetto Bank. Jacob is indeed the mortgage guru in this market. I know that for a fact. Just about 4 years ago, he helped me finance my condo out on Lake Murray and did an absolutely phenomenal job, and he will get you taken care of as well. Right now, with First Palmetto Bank, they are locally owned and operated right here in the Midlands, and that means quick and precise underwriting. Local decision makers helping Jacob get you the answers you need. So if you're looking to build, if you're looking to refinance, or you're looking to buy a new home, it's time to see what kind of interest rates are available, what kind of plans are available to you. Give Jacob Crowder a call today, 803-719-1005. And that's 803-719-1005. I tell you what, we are halfway through the year. If you're already thinking about the back half, call the Mortgage Guru today, 803-719-1005. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Man, messy conditions out there this morning. Alpine at I-20, an accident there. Also, you'll find one Ashland Road near St. Andrews Road. Community Drive at South Lake Drive, an accident. Also, Old Barnwell Road at South Lake Drive. Old Cherokee Road at Park. Old Orangeburg at Platte Springs Road. Rame Road at Houses Pond Way. And 277 southbound near Sunset Boulevard. There is an accident there as well. And still showing that really from about exit 101, about 104 on I-26 eastbound, that is still kind of stop and go. So hopefully that'll be clearing out soon. We're looking for a high today of 78 with some showers and thunderstorms, a little bit of rain tomorrow, 84 for the high.
$8:19 here on a Tuesday morning as we get you up and get you going with a little message board genius right now.
Or mayhem.
Mayhem. Well, it's off of Message Board Genius on Twitter. It's Message Board Mayhem, but it's Message Board Genius this is where we kind of filter through and we look for the Message Board Genius posts of the week, which is always quite entertaining, as Preston will tell you. And just like this right here. This is according to credible sources at Ohio State.
Yes. Well, a couple of things. I love when people hear names. I love when it's credible sources. This is right along the same territory.
This is according to one Carolina kid. He says every 5 years or so I get a pretty good tidbit from some credible folks. Anyway, I'm told that something major will be announced regarding Michigan. I was also told it wasn't good and it was just major. It could be made public in 1 to 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Have no other details. I tried to pry, but to no avail. Will be interesting to see.
That's the perfect message board message because, one, I told you I have credible sources, so don't question me. Two, what I told you is just vague enough that anything could happen, and I'm still right. And also, I gave a time frame, but not a specific time frame. Could be coming today, 2 weeks. I'm just telling you, I'm hearing things. It's perfect message.
I do always enjoy those. That's always pretty good. You got a couple more here. Tennessee message board says it's sad when Tennessee fans have nothing to talk about but baseball. Remember earlier, I used that one because earlier I said that's the one thing about the South Carolina job. Remember, we're going to talk baseball. It's well known. When I first started doing Sports Talk Radio was when South Carolina really was running to the College World Series. And I felt, this isn't a hard job. May, June, you talk baseball. Yeah, okay, a few weeks in July. Yeah, it's a little dull, but then you get SEC Media Day, and then it's into fall camp or preseason camp. Yeah, there's no downtime around here. And South Carolina stopped making runs to the College World Series, and they were eliminated the first week in June. I was like, around here, we talk baseball. That's the way it's going to be. If you come in, you're going to get praised if you win. If you lose, you're going to be criticized a little bit. Well, one Tennessee fan said, it's just sad. No football, just all baseball. Because Josh Heupel can't recruit. Fourth season in NIL money, and recruits should be knocking down the door. But we hear crickets.
Ooh. Okay.
There you go.
Well, Tennessee, listen, y'all are not in a bad spot. I'd say that.
There's your message board mayhem with message board geniuses on Twitter. 803-404-6100. NFL schedule release. Preston Thorne. This is amazing. This is where the NFL has taken over. Absolutely dominated. We can't around here, unless you have Bally Sports, which can be a little difficult to find. I think you got to have DirecTV. I think maybe you got to have Fubo. I can't remember the exact which ones you've got to have. We can barely watch the Braves. It's difficult enough trying to watch the Braves. However, the NFL will have a 2-hour primetime special, highlighting the release of the 2024 regular season schedule tomorrow night, 8 p.m. on ESPN2, and it'll be simulcast on ESPN Plus. And let me just add this. If you are any contributor to ESPN doing football, Mina Kimes, Adam Schefter, Marcus Spears, Dan Orvalowski, tomorrow night, you are working.
Oh, it's all hands on deck. This is one of those things where we had to circle it on the calendar. We had to get all the talent in the room to make sure we break down, analyze, discuss all of the things that could be happening with the NFL schedule. So what we know, and again, NFL is so clever because before the official release, they teased out that the first game will be the Ravens versus the Chiefs on a Thursday night, right? We got that. Now, what we also got was we got the international games. And, Bill, I have a passport ready.
Oh, okay.
The London game. My guy. Presumed starter. First-round draft pick.
Oh, boy, J.J. McCarthy.
The Minnesota Vikings. We haven't figured out who else they're playing. We'll be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Could two of my worlds be colliding at the same time?
Oh.
Huh? Just saying. To be determined who they're playing. So we got that. So that's the international games. We also have the Super Bowl, which will be on February 9th in New Orleans. If you want to do a Super Bowl, New Orleans is a great city to do it in. So we have our international games. We have our Super Bowl. We have our first game. Also, we have the first game that will be called by one Thomas Brady.
Oh?
He will be calling the Dallas Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns. Not only will you have the Cowboys, but you'll have Tom Brady calling that game on Fox at 4:25.
When is that game scheduled for?
September 8th.
So that's opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's great. So big schedule announcement tomorrow night, right? Huge schedule announcement. Got ESPN's doing their thing. NFL Plus. The NFL Plus is going to have additional. Let me just read you here. ESPN's got a 2-hour deal. A special 2-hour schedule release edition of Good Morning Football will air tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on the NFL Network.
Yep.
I'm reading this live. It says the 2024 international games will be revealed during the show ahead of the full announcement. So you've already that. Just about 30 minutes ago, another game was announced.
I didn't hear this one. I didn't see this one.
This is where we need that little ESPN draft sounder. However it goes, whatever it goes. Just within the last 40 minutes, we now know week 2. Week 2, we get Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead.
Ooh.
And this is what the NFL does, and we're sitting here talking about it. And most of you are still probably sitting there listening to it, and the NFL has completely eaten up the month of May, and we have no clue what the Atlanta Braves are doing against the Cubs last night because most of us are blacked out and can't see it.
Yeah, that's true. It's a great point. That's an absolute excellent point. Meanwhile, the NFL just continues to just take over and just grab up a little bit more of the calendar.
Every month.
Thanksgiving, we'll take that. Christmas Day, NBA, you thought that was yours? We're taking that now, too. New Year's Day, give it to us. College football, you thought Saturdays were safe? We'll take a little bit of that also. We're coming for everything. International, we're on the way.
NFL Plus will have something tomorrow night. Again, just if you're just wondering, everybody that's involved tomorrow night on the schedule release 24, Mike Tirico, Jim Nantz, Joe Buck, Al Michaels, for some reason, TJ Hawkinson from the Minnesota Vikings. Again, I mentioned the NFL Plus will offer fans exclusive content with secrets of the schedule, which features key decision makers from around the league sharing insights into creating this year's schedule. Fans will also get exclusive insights into their respective teams' win-loss record with projected team win totals. All I'm going to say is this. the SEC is not going to be far behind doing something similar.
Oh, the SEC's already started
Exactly.
doing this. This is the model. They're following this model. However, we can gain your attention for a much. I just think is very fascinating how the NFL has continued to dominate our limited attention span, but they figured out a way to monopolize it for sure.
Yeah, Jerry weighs in. He says Spectrum has Bally Sports. Spectrum was out last night, or at least in my neck of the woods. I don't have Spectrum, but I know their internet was out. And given the fact that I have not received an internet text message, I assume they're still out. But yes, nonetheless, by the way, Braves won last night, beat the Cubs. Ronald Acuna Jr. finally dove back to first base safely without being picked off. We've seen that a couple times this morning. 803-404-6100. Now, you can weigh in this morning if you want to do so. We'll tell you a little bit about the LeBron James situation. I don't know if I feel bad for Bronny James or not.
Ooh, this is a good one.
I'm kind of interested to hear on this. 803-404-6100. It's the early game.
Alpine Road at I-20, we have a report of an accident there, as well as Ashland Road near St. Andrews, Community Drive at South Lake Drive. Also a tie-up I-77 northbound at Shop Road, Old Barnwell Road at Highway 6, Old Cherokee Road at Park Road, Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road, getting that cleaned up after a semi-trailer had jackknifed in that intersection. Rame Road near Heises Pond Way, that is. 277 southbound near Sunset Boulevard. And still pretty good slowdown there on I-26 eastbound from about exit 104 to about 101 or so. We're looking for a high today of 65 with rain off and on.
You gotta love the NFL. I mean, there's a schedule release day, but they know how to just kick down the door on the NBA and be like, don't worry about your little playoffs. We got to release schedules, and we're gonna spread it out. What you said, I mean, again, the NFL is releasing this information. They are leaking it out. This is not stuff where others are leaking this out, because I watched, there was a really good thing over the weekend on ESPN. Like a big deal now has become these social media videos that will be released by the teams tomorrow, going through each game, kind of joking about, how they're going to win. I think one of them last year showed, I can't remember who it was because I kind of was watching the background, but it basically showed somebody, one of the franchises with binoculars looking out like over. It was kind of like a sea of all the games. It's just, I can't see a loss. I don't see a loss out there.
Nice.
And they had a couple. It's a really good thing if you ever catch it on if you ever catch it on ESPN. It was a little short, probably about 5-minute clip, but kind of people like Justin King, the video production people who put these videos together. Well, just in the break, just as we told you about that, Preston, the NFL decides, well, we're just going to eat up a Tuesday. We got our first Monday night game announced.
So strategic, because obviously the ESPN show Get Up is hosted by Mike Greeny, noted fan of one organization in New Jersey, I should say, the Green Team. And why not put the quarterback coming back from potential Achilles? Is he going to be in a dark chamber this year? Is he taking some psychedelic trip? Who knows? Let's put him on TV. First game, Monday night, Jets versus the 49ers. Great schedule.
Awesome.
I'm in. And we can talk all we want. It's like, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
I'll be there for it.
So what does the NBA counter with? Bronny James works out of the combine after medical clearance.
Yeah. So something happened to Bronny. Bronny and I have something in common, because Bronny's been listed at 6'4" for his entire life.
Uh-huh. And he showed up at the combine.
He went to the combine. He found out he's 6'1.5". I get it. I understand. I was 6'3" at one point in my life, too. And now I'm 5'11.5". Sometimes it depends on my posture that day.
Right,
it depends on what the weather is. I understand what has happened with Bronny. This is going to be an interesting case. We've never experienced anything like this before. As we've said with LeBron, the thing about LeBron is he's so interesting to talk about. He's just a lightning rod because people have so many different feelings about him. But I will reiterate, he's never done anything wrong off the court. Never been in any type of trouble. Nothing of that is the reasons why people have opinions about him. The reason why people have opinions about LeBron is because he does things like show up to a Cleveland Cavaliers playoff game a little late, right on time, making sure everybody can see him, comes to sit to the spot, acts like he doesn't want the fans to cheer for him, but he's secretly in his head telling them to cheer a little bit more. And he's just so calculated that you have to have a feeling about him. But he's never done anything wrong. I have to be clear in saying that. Never done anything off the court, character-wise. It's not that.
And again,
it's kind of a dude, you're just like, I'm just kind of sick of this guy.
Well, we want some of our heroes to show a human side, and you're right. LeBron and kudos to LeBron. It's hard for everything. You see some of these guys just get taken down inadvertently. They bring it upon themselves. Kobe had his own transgressions. Michael Jordan was lucky, is I think the best way to describe it. With what we at least know, know, but there's no cell phone video.
Correct.
Of Michael at Atlantic Beach at 4 a.m. in the morning, the night before the morning before a Bulls Knicks playoff game.
When he got the flu.
There's also the flu game.
Yeah, the flu game. Mm-hmm.
Quotes.
Again. Yeah, Jordan, and you can go to say the same. There's a great story. It was one of the documentaries that I watched, an incredible story, because one guy who's like kind of private off the court life we never really got was Larry Bird.
Mm-hmm.
And there was I can't remember what documentary it was a couple years ago, but it talks about him and one of his teammates being in Atlanta for a playoff game. And they left the hotel. They left the night before the hotel, and they went out, and they went drinking, and it just so happened a bunch of the Hawks dance team and cheerleaders happened to be at that bar, and they saw Larry Bird, and they decided, we're going to get him drunk, and we're going to claim victory for the Hawks. We're going to be the reason that Bird doesn't play well tomorrow night.
I imagine that didn't go over
And
well.
so they apparently the number that was tossed out was somewhere in the vicinity of about 30 beers between Larry and whoever the other teammate was. And he proceeded to go out and score 40. And as he was walking off, and they won. And as he was walking off the court the next night, he walked by the cheerleaders and his that French lick accent. He said, "Thanks for the beers last night."
That feels right.
In this day and age with LeBron, you're right. What we get is the corny stuff that we're like, really, man, Taco Tuesday. You're driving this car. What are you doing? And in this situation, going back courtside when he can opt out of his contract at the end of June and almost pitching to NBA teams, draft my non-ability. LeBron James can't be in the NBA right now.
My non-draftable son.
Draft my non-draft.
Well, you know what? You started it because you named him like a paper towel.
Well, no, and I think that's his nickname. I don't think he's legally Bronny James.
Probably not. But
yes.
Would you really want that? I don't know.
That's the thing. We don't know what Bronny wants. We don't want what LeBron James, and LeBron has stated this, that if he had something to go back, maybe he wouldn't have given him a junior name so that he could kind of disassociate himself.
Yeah,
but
I think when you're that big of a celebrity, that's almost a punishment to the kid to use that moniker.
Because we don't know if this kid, this young man, actually wants to play in the NBA.
Correct.
Is he just doing this because he feels like he's supposed to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And he has grown up with a lot of pressure around being LeBron James Jr. And that's a really, again, he's had a life. He's been
privileged.
There's been privilege,
but there's a lot of stress
pressure on the other side of
that. Kids, we see the downside of like the millionaires, the billionaires. We see their children, like the Paris Hiltons and people like that, who become a public spectacle, and you're like, oh man, I'm watching this person completely fail. That's interesting. Throw it on TMZ. Bronny James was for a long time growing up was a really good basketball player, and then all of a sudden there were players better than him, and he wasn't the top player in the 2024 recruiting class. And unfortunately for him, he goes to Southern Cal and has the medical issue there at the beginning of the season and really never got into rhythm. But you've seen it. I've seen it. I mean, you see kids who are really, really good, and then they get to that next level. They get up in the high school years. They're not so good, and they've met their match from outside of their area because they're not necessarily protected anymore.
Yeah, everybody meets your match eventually, right? You get to your ceiling. My ceiling was Division I football. That was the maximum way I could max out my athletic potential. Some people's potential is varsity football or varsity basketball or JV. Whatever the case is, everybody meets their match. The thing with Bronny is where we have to have the interesting conversation is because his father has been the NBA for the past 20 years. This is year 21, Bill, which is outrageous to say. But his father has been the face of the NBA for such a long time. He has the power to move those levers to get his son in that game.
Well, and I've followed this now for the last few years, kind of obviously from afar, but I follow this. It's been more of LeBron's dream to play one season. You're right. The next time I hear Bronny James talk will be the first time I hear Bronny James talk. We don't know what he wants, and maybe he wants that. Maybe that's his goal too. But this, and about 5 or 6 years ago, when Bronny was kind of developing as a 12 or 13-year-old, LeBron started openly talking about this scenario of he looked at Father Time. He did the math on the age, and it was LeBron James who almost set in motion the plan of college 1 year, come join me, and then I'm riding off into the sunset. And it was 5 or 6 years ago, almost when he went to the Lakers, that he actually publicly put out the plan. All right, when this contract's up, I got 1 year left, and whoever drafts my son gets me for the final year.
And here we are. Somebody's going to have to make a decision if they feel like that's going to be a worthwhile investment. Hence him going to this Cleveland game and just showing up, him and his wife, which again, a family man, everything you want by the books. However, there's just something that it just doesn't land with him. I can't put my finger on it.
It's a side story for the summer.
It's will be
a side story for the summer because LeBron can opt out June 29th of that Lakers contract, and the Lakers aren't anywhere near winning an NBA championship. They can't match up with the T-Wolves, and they can't match up with the Nuggets who play tonight.
Not to mention OKC is there.
OKC, Dallas.
Memphis Grizzlies when Ja gets healthy, he's going to be on. The Lakers are
all of a sudden
low.
you look at Ja and Gigi together, and the Grizzlies are going to have a good. I think I didn't look at the exact order of the draft. We were going to talk about that awful draft coming up, by the way, as well. We'll get into that later on, but we will close up shop. Lisa Bluter,
talk about reading the room.
Iowa coach appears to have looked around because WNBA starts tonight, and she saw Caitlin Clark legitimately in a Fever jersey. Went, is that retirement over there?
But just a heads up. I was not named the head coach. It may look almost similar, but I was not.
Well,
just going to say.
We will wrap it up when we come back. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. For nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner, owner, founder, and the family have been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. The absolute best, whether you're in Myrtle Beach, Florence, right here in Columbia, or listening somewhere on your 107.5 The Game app, Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you with a maintenance contract. They know that you're walking around today thinking about other things going on in your life. You're not thinking about your roof. They are, though, and they're ready to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mid-State Roofing will provide the proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility in a manner both safe and pleasing to your operation. So give them a phone call. They have somebody waiting to take your call and help you with a maintenance contract. 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. Call Mid-State Roofing today. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. 803-404-6100. How we wrap things up. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, the Indiana Fever, they get things going tonight against I believe the Connecticut's. I'm not going to lie, I don't know. I don't know what Connecticut's.
Sun, I believe.
I think it is. It looks like it. It looks like it's 7:30 ESPN2. Connecticut's -6.5. We'll talk about that in just a second here. Also, we'll get to Iowa coach Lisa Bluter might have watched preseason and realized, Caitlin's not back. Neither is Gabby. I don't think Gabby Marshall is either. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in just a second. First, let me tell you about Zerust Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. With graduation, the end of school, warmer months ahead, celebrate everything in a clean home by calling Zerust Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Let their cleaning pros come and use the patented ZR water technology, scientifically proven to keep your house looking cleaner. It cleans better than detergents, and right now you've got a great deal going on. Mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, and get 3 rooms of carpet clean for only $129. Book online, ZerustColumbia.com. Again, mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, and you can get 3 rooms of carpet clean for only $129. 803-262-4020 or book online, ZerustColumbia.com. Zerust, spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. WNBA again kicking off tonight. ESPN2, if you want to flip over. I will be interested to see. I'm sure we'll get some numbers on ratings on this. Caitlin Clark will make her debut there for the Fever. Again, that'll be 7:30 on ESPN. Just 4 days ago, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block in 33 minutes of her preseason game against the Dream. She was 4 of 12 from the field, so we didn't see the 30 shots she normally takes. This is where, okay, all right, all the hype. The Gatorade commercials and all she's done. Now we see if she can hold her own.
Welcome to the W. She will absolutely hold her own, and she'll be fine. But she is, as Diana Taurasi was saying, she's a rook, and so she's going to have to learn to adjust to the professional women's game. Those women out there have been playing basketball for a long time. They have a lot of pride, and she will get everybody's best shot every night in the W. But she'll be fine because she's extremely talented.
So that leads us back to Lisa Bluter, who, head coach of Iowa, yesterday announces retirement. Preston Thorne. Maybe she looked around and saw Oregon out there. Remember when Oregon had Sabrina Ionescu and was supposed to be the challenger for South Carolina? We never got that showdown. We never got that matchup. Iowa was supposed to be the challenger that got South Carolina 2 years ago. This year did not get them in the championship game, and now Iowa might be looking somewhere back to the further back in the pack.
I'm a proponent of this. 24 seasons. She's been tremendously successful. She went to 2 national championship games. She's been at the top of the mountain. And when you look back after 24 years, every coach goes through this. You look at the roster that's coming. You see what's in the recruiting path. You're looking around and you say, I
mean, I just sent off one of the top players in the world. That's probably a great place to end because most likely there's a little rebuilding that's going to have to happen, and at her stage of the game, yeah, it's a good time to retire. Absolutely.
I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Yeah, peace out.
I've seen the mountaintop. This is as good as it's going to be. So I really congratulate her on making this decision because a lot of times coaches don't make this decision.
Yep.
A lot of times coaches say, well, I got one more in me, and you don't.
Gino?
Maybe. Sometimes. You never know. Some people hang around. And, as much as this year has been, this time with Caitlin has been magical for Iowa, it has probably been very stressful for her as a coach, trying to just handle all of the attention that was suddenly thrust upon her program. It's cool. It's awesome. But I'm sure after especially after the last year or two, she's probably like, I'm good.
Yeah, we don't give Bluter, I mean, I'm not being funny, we don't give her enough credit. She was very good. She retires as the all-time winningest coach in Big Ten history.
Right.
528 career victories. She started there in 2000, 40-year head coach, but 24 at Iowa. Made 22 postseason appearances, including 14 of the last 16 NCAA tournaments. Obviously, as you just mentioned, played for the national championship the last 2 years. Led the Hawkeyes to 5 Big Ten tournament titles, 2 shared Big Ten regular season championships. She wasn't just Caitlin Clark.
Right.
I do, however, think she looked around and was like, this is – because she's only 63. And in this day and age, we're seeing coaches go well into their 70s to coach. But I think you're right. I think she took one look around and was like, sitting on the sideline, following Caitlin and the Fever, following some of my other young women into their profession, the right idea.
To put a bow on this, reminds me of another coach locally who reached the mountaintop of his profession after 3 years in the College World Series and said, is it going to get better than this? Probably not.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We will do it all again tomorrow. There's an interesting article on The Athletic. It's called Inside the Transfer Portal. College football's transfer portal works. Coaches, players, and agents dish on NIL. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And by then, we'll probably know all of the NFL schedule.
It'll be out for sure.
The 8 o'clock release will be irrelevant. Y'all have a great rest of the day. We're out.
Hey, are you tired of living with chronic pain, knee pain, joint pain? Well, listen carefully because there are now new regenerative treatments available. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine and is now open, giving lasting relief to people with joint pain with no surgery, drugs, and no downtime. Regenerative medicine uses highly concentrated healing agents from your own body. QC Kinetics has over 100 clinics nationwide and has treated thousands of patients with incredible success. Their advanced protocols are an exciting way to manage pain from arthritis and injury without surgery, steroids, or pills. So if you've got pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back, you need to check out these new treatments that they can actually help your body restore and repair itself. So call now to schedule free consultations with the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. The number is 803-281-6860. That's 803-281-6860.
All roads this morning, looking at Alpine Road and I-20 with an accident. Also, Ashland St. Andrews Community Drive at South Lake. Also, we got 2 notch at I-77, Old Cherokee at Park, Rame Road at Hesse's Pond Way at North Crossing. Also, 277 near Sunset Drive, an accident there as well. We got a 70% chance of off and on thunderstorms today, 78 for a high. Tomorrow, a few showers are also likely, 84 for a high. Thursday, 86 for a high, mostly sunny skies. And then Friday, afternoon thunderstorms return again with 83 for a high. This is Captain Dave, WIS-TV Traffic Center.